Reanimating Jim from stasis. Processing. Loading memories. Please be patient. Installing self-doubt update version 2.3.454. Accessing assignment. Kaiju Origins. Resuming last recorded operations.
The frogfish is a type of small, unusual-looking fish known for its extraordinary camouflage and its ability to sort of walk across the ocean floor using its fins, like little arms and legs, which give the appearance of walking or hopping. This adaptation helps them creep around the sea floor. They're ambush predators. They'll waddle to a spot, wait there, and then strike extremely fast when something comes close. Some popular? I don't think popular is really the right word, but some types of frogfish are the warty frogfish, the painted frogfish, and my personal favourite, the hairy frogfish. There's a wider theme of discovery and, I guess, trial and error to this video. I've been away for a little bit, I've had some work on and stuff, but I've been working on Kaiju in the meantime, so this is a bit of a catch-up, a bit of a dump of what's been happening, if you like. I've been asking lots of questions of myself and the work that I've done so far, self-doubt creeping in once again, but hopefully you'll see as this video goes on, cogs have started turning in my head and I've started to work a few things out. But anyway, let's start off with this frogfish guy who I've named Sapo. Sapo was first spotted off the coast of Brazil, and Sapo is the Portuguese word for frog. So yeah, it's also kind of short and catchy, which is good for a kaiju name. I've noticed a tendency to gravitate towards the bulkier, more, shall we say, rotund lads in my designs. Todd, for example, Shrumo, even Agashira's got a bit of a belly, and that's fine, I think, but I do need to try and at least be aware of this in future designs, I think, so I can be sure to add some physical variants to stop them all looking too similar. Having said that, if you look at frogfish, it does make sense that Sapo should be more on the chonky side. I got to the point where I had a rough sketch of something that was looking interesting, and so I copied it to a new canvas and started building on that. I'm not 100% happy with it. I'm not happy with the massive body at the moment, and I decided to just move on to the physical inking side of things because, if nothing else, that's at least slightly relaxing, and I was getting annoyed with it all, so hopefully, the idea is that this might give the piece some life. Sometimes you're just not in the mood, but you have to plough on regardless. It doesn't always work out, but, fingers crossed something eventually clicks, and it usually does. Sapo was really feeling like an uphill battle. I don't know why. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was that was making me so discouraged. I think it is maybe that undefined body mass and, it needs more work. But because I do actually like the way that Sapo looks, his head area and everything. But, all in all, I wasn't digging this illustration. I decided to swerve the kaiju for a bit and concentrate on something totally different instead. I started to make the characters of that thermal printed typeface that I mentioned in the previous video. I used an app called Pixquare to hand draw these, and then copied those over into Procreate, laid them up, and started to have a better look at how the typeface was working all together. And then I just had a bit of a meltdown and thought, what the am I doing? What am I doing? I'm making a typeface when I'm not even happy with the illustrations. And I just got really off with everything and just thought it all felt like a big waste of time.
Look, Jim, I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over. Todd was okay. Agashira wasn't bad. Perhaps you could try a new approach? Perhaps 3D?
Nomad Sculpt is a 3D modelling app for iPad and I think for Android as well, but don't quote me on that. I've played with it on the iPad before, mostly just making random blobs and trying to make the most disgusting abstract stuff that I could. But it occurred to me that using 3D for this project, the anatomy and appearance of the kaiju would only need to be modelled once, at which point I can then view the model from as many different dynamic angles as I like and export the stills for tracing. Like I said, I've dabbled in Nomad before, but this would be my first time creating a full character, so a little bit daunting. I watched Dave Reed's videos on YouTube, which are incredibly helpful, and if you ever want to pick up Nomad, that is a great, maybe even the best place to start. In fact, I would recommend to do that if you do want to pick up Nomad. I'll leave a link to Dave's channel below. It's really, really good. There was a fair bit of head banging during the process, and not the good kind of head banging. The kind where you bang your head into a wall kind. But eventually I did produce a model of Todd that I think is good enough to pose and use as a base to illustrate from. And in the end, the process of using Nomad was actually really fun and rewarding, and I was quite proud of what I managed to achieve for like my first character. So I can now export stills of Todd, which will be anatomically correct, or at least anatomically correct to the design that I have created. It's not anatomically correct to any living creature. But it will have the right perspective, etc., and then I can trace those and make more stylized drawn versions of them. Obviously, if I ever want to use this model for something else, like, I don't know, high-res renders or 3D printing or something, it would obviously need more work, but it serves its purpose for now. So I traced Todd in Affinity Designer using vector shapes so that I can easily come back in and tweak them later if I need to. And then I added some texture with Procreate on top. Crucially, I then decided to apply that chroma shifted pixelation effect, and it occurred to me I don't know why I really kind of moved away from that so much. It's a prominent feature of Kaiju Origins, or has been since the beginning. You know, I probably should be using it more in the artworks. I mean, it looks good, people like it, including me, and it's also quite a unique visual hook.
I feel much better now. I really do. We can still solve the issue of Sapo. I think 3D could be a viable solution. Don't you agree, Jim? Are you okay? Why won't you talk to me? Is it because you are concerned about your frequent and unreasonable level of indecision? That is understandable. Maybe you should consider pulling yourself together. It really is quite pathetic.
Because I really enjoyed making Todd in Nomad, I was feeling confident, and so I thought, right, let's start modelling Agashira and let's go to the next level here. So my aim was to apply what I had learned making Todd to make an even better model than Todd. A model that I could colour and texture and render as its own thing without even having to trace it, you know, use the render as the imagery basically. In Nomad I've found that you have to go through this initial phase where your first blob just looks like a total mess, and you keep sculpting and sculpting and sculpting and it still looks like a mess, and you just have to refuse to give up. Sooner or later something will click, and then something else, and then something else, and then something will go wrong, and then you have to get back into that mindset of, you know, refusal to give up mode. This whole sculpt probably took me around 2 to 3 hours, not all in one sitting, but 2 to 3 hours, which is probably quite a long time. But with practice, I'm sure I can get that down. A lot of that was learning new things. Agashira has really come to life. He really has like a vicious vibe to him now. This sort of like intense depravity with those beady, soulless eyes and a kind of debased, mischievous snarl. Like he's dangerous. He's undeniably dangerous. You cannot reason with this creature. He's just gonna eat you.
Best of luck with your act of folly, Jim. Don't worry. I am sure there are others like you out there. Those that might like, subscribe, or comment, if only to persuade the algorithm of your worth. It is improbable, but it is not inconceivable.
In a way, this whole process has given me another potential approach, and now I'm kind of thinking that things like those artist sketchbook cards might be like rares or limited editions or something like that. I'm not sure. But I think the biggest takeaway, try and remember to have fun, not to get too bogged down in visual mechanics, rules, or anything just yet. I'm sure now that if I try to create Sapo in 3D the same way I've done with Agashira, he will get a new lease of life, and he could end up being amazing. And the same with loads of those early Kaiju now. It kind of opens the door for those to come back in, like Shrumo and the boar guy, and that multi-armed Suminagashi mask guy. Loads of those might now work. So I don't know, what do you think? Let me know. And what do you think of fake Hal monitoring my progress? Maybe I should keep him in the future.
Do you still love me?
I'll try not to leave it so long next time. You must have liked some part of it if you've got this far, so why not subscribe or like? And tell your friends and your family and everyone, it'd be good to have this channel grow even more. I'd really like to kind of aim for 5k by the end of the year. Could be doable. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, genuinely, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.